This isn't what I wanted! I only hope you can forgive me.
Those Final Fantasy programmers know how to make a good boss fight. You got Leviathan versus a Freet. I personally think Leviathan would take a Freet in the end. All that water would put that fire out. But if you play the game, spoiler alert, a Freet will come out on top because that's the character you are playing. You ought to check it out. It's an amazing boss fight. They always do a great job. But as I got to looking at Leviathan and seeing him in all his glory in Final Fantasy, it reminded me of the story from the biblical account in the book of Job. That's where you hear about the Leviathan. A lot of the more fantastical things you see in the Final Fantasy games, they're pulling from different religions and Christianity or Judaism or even some of the other cultures that follow along with the Old Testament is where they found a lot of these creatures. We got Leviathan, the Behemoth, who's also in Final Fantasies. That's also something written about in the book of Job. But I thought we would kind of check out the story in the book of Job to kind of see how the Leviathan in Final Fantasy kind of sizes himself up to it. So let me change it out here and we'll look at it. This is found in Job 41. So God asked Job, can you draw out Leviathan with a hook or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? So he's saying, can you catch Leviathan? You know, like, can you go fishing and get Leviathan? Can you put a reed through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he make many supplications to you? Will he speak softly to you? I like that one. Can you go out there and talk softly? Can you be a Leviathan whisperer, or is he going to whisper back and talk to you? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you take him as a servant forever? Can he make a promise to him? Can you make him your pet? Will you play with him as with a bird, or will you leash him for your maidens? Said, will your companions make a banquet of him? Will they apportion him among the merchants? I like it. Said, you think you can eat Leviathan? Are y'all gonna make a banquet out of him? Can you fill his skins with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? Lay your hands on him, remember the battle, never do it again. Woo, boy, God, put the gauntlet down now. He says, I dare you to go try to touch Leviathan. I dare you to get him. Said, if you do, you're going to remember the battle and you'll never touch him again. You know, Final Fantasy kind of brings that out. They ain't no regular Joe going to go out there and mess with the Leviathan of Final Fantasy, and they're pulling this straight out of the Bible. Said, indeed, any hope of overcoming him is false. Shall one not be overwhelmed at the sight of him? That's kind of neat. Final Fantasy, right when he kind of comes out, it's an amazing picture. Said, no one is so fierce that he would dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand against me? So now God's saying, if I created him, what do you think I'm like? I'm the all-powerful. I'm the creator of everything. Says, who has preceded me that I should pay him Everything under heaven is mine. And God's kind of saying like, well, why do I owe you anything? I've given you your very life. I'm giving you your very existence. Why does everything have to go our way? And you know, when we get to thinking that way, it's almost like we want to be God, is what he's really saying to Job there. He says, I will conceal his limbs, his mighty power, or his graceful proportions. He says, I will not conceal anything. Who can remove his outer coat? Who can approach him with a double bridle? I like that. Who's going to ride the Leviathan? Who can open the doors of his face with his terrible teeth all around? His rows of scales are his pride, shut up tightly as with a seal. One is so near another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another, they stick together and cannot be parted. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning light, sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke goes out of his nostrils as from a boiling pot, and burning rushes. His breath kindles clothes, and a flame goes out of his mouth. So Leviathan was a fire-breathing dragon. You see that in the Final Fantasy. There's a scene, you know, we just saw it there at the beginning, where he shoots that beam out at Ifrit. It says, strength dwells in his neck, and sorrow dances before him. The folds of his flesh are joined together. They are firm on him and cannot be moved. His heart is as hard as stone, even as hard as the lower millstone. When he raises himself up, the mighty are afraid. Because of his crashings, they are beside themselves. Though the sword reaches him, it cannot avail, nor does spear, dart, or javelin. He regards iron as straw and bronze as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Sling stones become like stubble to him. Darts are regarded as straw. He laughs at the threat of javelins. His undersides are like sharp potsherds. He spreads pointed marks in the mirror. He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. So it's just showing how powerful this sea creature was. And then it's even showing like nothing can penetrate his skin. It can't go through his scales. You know, I think of Smog from The Hobbit, you know, him, but he had a spot where a scale could come off. According to the Leviathan, that this was not the case. It says he leaves a shining wake behind him. Would think the deep had white hair. On earth there's nothing like him which is made without fear. He beholds every high thing. He's king over all the children of pride. I think of that white wake. It reminds me of the Legend of Zelda, you know, when the dragons are flying in the new ones, and you can kind of see the little wake behind them. It kind of reminds me of that there. And then it shows he's king over all the children of pride. These people who's thinking they're going to overpower Leviathan, he's saying they don't have a chance. If you get in Psalms, it tells you what happens to Leviathan, since no human can do anything with him. And why don't we see him today? The psalmist says, for God is my king from of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. So this psalmist was trusting God, and it said God was working salvation. He's protecting me. He's taking care of me. And that's the whole point, picture of the Bible, is he's going to redeem you through his son. If you trust God, he's going to take care of you. He says, you divided the sea by your strength. You broke the heads of the sea serpents in the water. Now look at 14. You broke the heads of Leviathan in pieces and gave him as food to the people inhabiting the wilderness. Then he goes, you broke open the fountain and the flood. You got the flood, the Noah story is kind of hinting at there. But we see in 14, the Leviathan had heads. It was a multi-headed Leviathan. It reminds me, you look in some Greek mythology and stuff, you got the Hydra. Apparently, you know, Hercules took out the Hydra. But it's showing God broke the heads, and he gave him the food and the people inhabiting the wilderness. Now, this would have been the old earth. This would have been before the flood in the biblical account, because the flood's coming after that. So we see one of the Leviathans is gone right here. But if you jump to the book of Enoch, and now the book of Enoch is not in the Bible. It's in the Ethiopian Bible, actually, but it's not a book in the Bible, but it talks about some of this stuff too. In verse 24 in the book of Enoch from chapter 3, it says, and on that day were two monsters parted, a female monster named Leviathan. All right, so we got a male monster, a male Leviathan. God God killed him. But there's a female Leviathan, and it says this monster named Leviathan to dwell in the abyss of the ocean over the fountains of the water. But the male is named, there's Bahamut, which is also part of Final Fantasy, who occupied with his breast a waste wilderness named the Duodane. And that's kind of all it says. There's more about the Bahamut, but that'll be maybe another video one day. But we're seeing this water Leviathan there. And if you look at some other accounts, I don't have them up here, but if you look at some other accounts, it kind of shows that there's giant stories all throughout different religions, and it's in the Bible and even in other cultures. And in some of those stories, it teaches that one of those giants, when the flood was coming, because the flood was going to take a lot of those giants out, got mad at God, and they actually killed the female Leviathan. No human could do it, but the giants could. And the Bible calls those giants Nephilim. If you ever want to hear about that, put it in the comments, and I'll do a series about the giants that is in the Bible, and we'll look at the Nephilim. And I can even tie that into a lot of video games. A lot of our video games and entertainment, the things we see today, a lot of it all started back in the Bible. I think that's pretty amazing. We're seeing these things. We see these pictures of dragons and sea serpents and giants. You know, I did the story not too long ago. I did a video about AI and things like that. I did the Legend of Zelda and how Link reminds me a little bit of Jesus. We're seeing touchstones of it in everything, and a lot of people don't want to admit it, but if you go back and look at the religions and the ancient religions, and specifically Christianity, you can see that influence in everything that we're looking at today. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it right there with that cool image of the Leviathan from Final Fantasy, and I think they did an awesome job of kind of showing the Leviathan. It'd been cool to see a multi-headed Leviathan. Again, that reminds me of the Hydra from Greek mythology. But I think they did an excellent job. Y'all ought to get into the game, and then y'all can battle the Leviathan too with the giant fire monster Ifrit. As always, thank you for watching. Hope you all have a great one.